Good evening. Tonight we will journey back in time, not to the thunder of empires or the clamor of great battles, but to a quieter, more personal narrative, one woven with threads of deep faith, enduring patience, and the gentle hand of divine providence. Our story unfolds within the pages of the Book of Tobit, a beloved and ancient account from the Catholic Bible. It is a tale of family, of unexpected hardship, of a journey across vast landscapes, and of the quiet miracles that can illuminate even the darkest moments. We will meet Tobit, a man of unwavering piety, his steadfast wife Anna, their son Tobias, and a young woman named Sarah, whose lives are intricately bound by both sorrow and the promise of grace. As we delve into these details, allow your mind to absorb the subtle rhythms of their existence, the texture of their ancient world, and the quiet unfolding of a divine plan. This exploration is designed not to stir, but to gently guide your thoughts, allowing your awareness to soften and your body to relax. Let the whispers of distant lands, the rustle of ancient scrolls, and the murmur of quiet prayers become the gentle backdrop to your journey towards rest. Imagine the quiet town of Nineveh, a city of great renown, yet for our story's central figure, Tobit, it was a place of exile. His life began not there, but in the land of Naphtali, in a place called Tispa. He was a devout man, a descendant of Asher, and even from his youth, he walked in the paths of righteousness, diligently following the commandments of the Lord. His was a faithfulness deeply rooted, a quiet commitment that set him apart even amidst his own family and tribe. When his people, the northern tribes of Israel, began to abandon the sacred traditions, turning away from Jerusalem and offering sacrifices to idols, Tobit held firm. Imagine the subtle pressure, the quiet disappointment of his peers as he consistently chose the ancient ways. He alone, among his kinsmen, would travel faithfully to Jerusalem for the festivals, bringing his first fruits and tenths, honoring the temple and the priests, living strictly by the law of Moses. This was not an ostentatious piety, but a steady inner conviction that guided his every step. Even in exile, after the Assyrian king Shalmaneser had taken them captive to Nineveh, Tobit's commitment did not waver. Imagine the alien landscape of Nineveh, its grand buildings and unfamiliar customs, a stark contrast to the familiar hills of his homeland. Yet here, far from home, his compassionate heart found ways to express its devotion. He lived a life of quiet charity, extending kindness to his fellow exiles who were suffering. His particular compassion was reserved for those who had fallen in the city. When he saw any of his kinsmen who had died and been cast out behind the walls of Nineveh, he would, even at great personal risk, retrieve them and provide a proper burial. Imagine the night falling over Nineveh, the city lights beginning to glow, and Tobit, under the cover of darkness, venturing out. He would gently lift the lifeless form, feeling the weight of a life abruptly ended, and carry it away, finding a quiet place to lay it to rest with dignity. This was an act of profound mercy, a testament to his belief in the sanctity of human life, even for those forgotten by others. This unwavering righteousness, however, did not shield him from adversity. During the reign of Sennacherib, a period of particular hardship for the Judeans in exile, Tobit's compassion led him into grave danger. He continued his merciful practice of burying the dead, even when it was strictly forbidden by the king. Imagine the atmosphere of fear, the quiet vigilance required as he continued his sacred duty. His devotion to these acts of mercy eventually cost him dearly. One evening, after burying a kinsman, he returned home weary, his body heavy with the day's quiet labor. He lay down by the wall of his courtyard, perhaps seeking a moment of cool respite before sleeping. As he rested, warm bird droppings fell from a swallow's nest above, settling into his eyes. Imagine the sudden warmth, then the searing pain, the immediate blurring of his vision. This was not a slow decline, but a swift, profound shift. From that moment, his sight began to fail, and he was plunged into a world of ever-deepening darkness. His vision clouded, and despite the efforts of physicians who attempted to treat him with ointments, his condition worsened. Imagine the slow, creeping despair as the light continued to recede, leaving him reliant on others, his active life of service suddenly curtailed. For 8 long years, he remained blind, a captive in his own home, dependent on the quiet care of his devoted wife, Anna, and their son, Tobias. His former life of tireless compassion was now replaced by the quiet, often frustrating limitations of profound darkness. From Tobit's quiet world of deepening darkness, our attention now gently shifts to his steadfast wife, Anna, whose resilience became the very foundation of their household. With Tobit's sight gone, the burden of providing for the family fell squarely upon her shoulders. Imagine Anna's days. They would begin before the sun, her hands accustomed to the work that now sustained them. She might spend long hours weaving, her fingers meticulously guiding the threads, creating intricate patterns in the fabric. The rhythmic sound of the loom, a soft, persistent clicking, would fill their humble home, a testament to her quiet industry. Or perhaps she would spin wool, the fibers softening between her fingers, transforming raw material into usable thread. The scent of wool, of the earth, of her own quiet determination would linger in the air. Her efforts were tireless. She worked day and night, her movements precise and practiced, ensuring that their small household had food, warmth, and the necessities of daily life. Imagine the quiet strength in her posture, the unwavering focus in her eyes, even as weariness settled into her bones at the close of a long day. She was not only a provider, but a constant source of comfort and practical care for her blind husband, guiding his steps, anticipating his needs within the confines of their home. Yet, even in the midst of her quiet strength, a poignant incident arose that revealed the deep strain on both Anna and Tobit. One day, Anna brought home a young goat, a small addition to their meager resources. Tobit, his ears now acutely sensitive in his world of darkness, heard the sound of the bleating. Suspicion, perhaps born of his long years of hardship, crept into his mind. He questioned how she had acquired the goat, fearing it might have been stolen, a violation of the very principles of honesty he had always upheld. Imagine Anna's reaction. Her exhaustion, her tireless efforts, perhaps the quiet pride in bringing home something to help her family, all met with suspicion from the man she so diligently cared for. Her voice, usually soft, might have held a tremor of frustration as she responded, explaining that the goat was a gift, a small payment for her weaving work. The tension in the small room would have been palpable, a momentary fracture in their quiet harmony, born of the immense pressures they both endured. This incident, however small, plunged Tobit deeper into despair. He had always been a man of integrity, deeply committed to righteousness. His blindness, coupled with this misunderstanding, weighed heavily on him. He felt perhaps that his misfortunes were a sign, a punishment for some unknown transgression. In his heart, the burden of his existence became almost unbearable. He felt helpless, a drain on his beloved Anna, unable to contribute meaningfully as he once had. In that profound moment of weariness and sorrow, Tobit turned to prayer. Imagine him in the quiet of his room, his face turned towards the heavens, the darkness behind his eyelids matching the darkness he felt within. He did not pray for healing, not for wealth, but for release. He prayed for death, a gentle end to his suffering, and to what he perceived as his burden on his family. He recounted his righteous deeds, his failures, and his deep desire to be free from his affliction. The words would have flowed from a place of deep spiritual exhaustion, a longing for peace. As Tobit poured out his heart in this solemn prayer, a memory stirred within him. Long ago, he had entrusted 10 talents of silver, a considerable sum, to a kinsman named Gebal, who lived in Rages of Media. This wealth, carefully saved, now seemed a distant possibility. But in his moment of despair, a flicker of an idea ignited. Perhaps this money, if recovered, could ease Anna's burden, provide for Tobias, and bring some measure of stability back to their struggling household. And so, with renewed, albeit quiet purpose, Tobit called for his son, Tobias. He recounted the story of the entrusted silver, the details of Gebal's whereabouts, and instructed Tobias to embark on a journey to retrieve it. This was a momentous request, an arduous and dangerous journey for a young man. But in Tobit's heart, it was a final, desperate act of paternal responsibility, a hope for a better future for his beloved family. From this place of paternal concern and the quiet despair of a blind, Father, our journey now transitions to the hesitant steps of a young man. Embarking on a path that he could not foresee would lead him to far more than just silver. From the quiet despair in Tobit's home and his desperate hope for the entrusted silver, our story now follows the hesitant steps of his young son, Tobias, as he prepared for a momentous journey. This was not a short trip. Traveling from Nineveh to Rages of Media was a significant undertaking in the ancient world, fraught with uncertainties. Imagine Tobias as he began his preparations. He would gather simple provisions, a small amount of food, perhaps some dried figs and dates, a water skin, and perhaps a staff for walking. His clothing would be practical, sturdy garments suited for dusty roads and varying temperatures. His mother, Anna, naturally filled with apprehension for her only son, would watch his preparations with a mother's quiet concern. Imagine her heart, torn between the need to support her blind husband and the natural fear for her son embarking on such a perilous venture. She might offer quiet blessings, her touch gentle as she adjusted his simple tunic. Before setting out, Tobias needed a guide. Someone familiar with the treacherous roads, the safe routes, and the potential dangers of banditry or difficult terrain. He went out into the marketplace, a place of bustling activity and various sounds, to seek assistance. And there, almost immediately, he found a young man standing idly by, a stranger with a serene and composed demeanor. Imagine Tobias approaching this unassuming figure. The young man identified himself as Azariah, claiming kinship with the Israelites and possessing knowledge of the road to Media. There was an immediate sense of calm and trustworthiness about him. Tobias returned home, introducing Azariah to his father. Tobit, despite his blindness, sensed the guide's reassuring presence and, after discerning his lineage and capabilities, entrusted his beloved son into Azariah's care. Imagine the father's quiet blessing over his son and the unknown guide. a moment of profound hope mingling with lingering anxiety. And so Tobias and Azariah began their journey. They were accompanied by Tobias's dog, a faithful companion who trotted along beside them. Their path would lead them first through the familiar landscapes around Nineveh, then gradually into more open, less populated territories. Imagine the steady rhythm of their footsteps on the ancient roads, the whisper of the wind across the plains, and the vast open sky above them. The days would be filled with the quiet companionship of the guide, the simple meals eaten on the roadside, and the constant progression forward. One evening, as the sun began its gentle descent, they reached the banks of the Tigris River. Imagine the cooling air near the water, the soft murmur of the river's currents, and the shimmering surface reflecting the fading light. Tobias, weary from the day's travel, decided to wash his feet in the cool waters. As he ventured to the edge, a large fish suddenly leaped out of the water, startling him and appeared to threaten him. Imagine the sudden splash, the momentary surprise, the quick movement of the creature. Azariah, with calm precision, instructed Tobias, "Catch the fish. Do not let it go." Following the instruction, Tobias managed to seize hold of the fish and drag it onto the bank. Then, with an air of purpose, Azariah instructed Tobias further, "Cut open the fish and take out its gall, heart, and liver. Put them aside safely and then throw away the entrails. For the gall, heart, and liver are useful as medicine." Tobias, accustomed to obedience and perhaps sensing the wisdom in his guide's seemingly unusual command, carefully followed these directions. Imagine his hands, perhaps a little unsteady, performing the task, the feel of the fish, the distinct smells. The rest of the fish was then prepared and preserved for their journey, providing a source of sustenance for the road ahead. As they resumed their journey, the mysterious guide, Azariah, began to explain the particular virtues of these specific parts of the fish. He spoke of how the heart and liver, when burned, could drive away troublesome spiritual presences, and how the gall could be used to cure certain afflictions of the eyes. Imagine Tobias listening, his mind open to these ancient remedies, sensing that his companion possessed knowledge far beyond what was common among travelers. This seemingly simple encounter by the river had provided them not only with food for their bodies, but also with unexpected tools for future deliverance and healing, a quiet foreshadowing of the remarkable events yet to unfold. From the quiet banks of the Tigris River and the acquisition of the mysterious fish, Tobias and Azariah continued their journey across the vast landscapes. Days turned into weeks, marked by the steady rhythm of footsteps, the changing light of the sun, and the shared silences of travel. Their path eventually led them to a new destination, a city far from Nineveh, nestled in the region of Media. Imagine their arrival in Ecbatana. The sounds would shift from the natural whispers of the wilderness to the distant hum of urban life, the murmur of voices, the clatter of carts, the scent of market spices. As they entered the city, Azariah, the guide, began to speak of a kinsman named Regal, who lived there. He revealed that Regal had a daughter named Sarah, a young woman of quiet grace and beauty, and, significantly, that she was Tobias's closest relative by law, making her the rightful heir to her father's estate. But then a more somber note entered Azariah's calm voice. He began to recount a perplexing and sorrowful tale about Sarah. Imagine Tobias listening intently as the story unfolded. Sarah, it seemed, had been married 7 times. And each time, tragically, her husband had perished on their wedding night before the marriage could be truly consummated. This was not a pattern of natural misfortune. It was believed to be the work of a malevolent spiritual presence, a demon named Asmodeus, who held a terrible power over her. Imagine the shadow this unseen affliction would cast over Sarah's life. Each time, hope would bloom in her heart and in her family, only to be cruelly extinguished on the very threshold of new beginnings. The joy of a wedding feast, the anticipation of a shared future, all dissolved into profound sorrow and fear. For Sarah, this repeated tragedy had led to deep isolation. People would likely whisper about her, perhaps viewing her with pity, fear, or even suspicion. The societal expectation for a woman to marry and bear children was immense in ancient times, and Sarah's repeated widowhood on her wedding night would have marked her in a profoundly tragic way. Her own maidservants, perhaps out of frustration or unkindness, once taunted her about her misfortune, suggesting that she was the cause of her husband's deaths. Imagine the sting of those words, the unfair accusation compounding her grief and despair. These accusations, though cruel, reflected the deep societal anxiety around such unexplained misfortunes. And so Sarah, much like Tobit in his blindness, found herself in a place of profound weariness and sorrow. Her future, once filled with the promise of love and family, now seemed a perpetual cycle of loss and solitary existence. Imagine her alone in her room, perhaps by a window where the city sounds were distant. The weight of her past, the fear of her future, and the cruel taunts of others settled heavily upon her heart. In that moment of deep despair, Sarah too turned to prayer. She approached her window, perhaps looking out at the vastness of the sky, longing for release. She did not pray for a husband, nor for wealth, but, like Tobit, she prayed for death. She pleaded with the Lord to take her life, feeling that living had become an unbearable burden. She wished to escape the shame, the sorrow, and the mysterious affliction that clung to her. She reaffirmed her purity and innocence, longing for an end to her suffering. Her prayer was a quiet lament, a profound expression of a spirit longing for peace and deliverance from an invisible tormentor. Unbeknownst to both Sarah in Ecbatana and Tobit back in Nineveh, their individual prayers, offered in moments of deepest despair, were ascending to the heavens at the very same moment. A divine thread, unseen yet powerful, was beginning to weave together their distant lives through the quiet presence of Azariah. From the depths of Sarah's despair and Tobit's distant longing for peace, the narrative now draws Tobias into a remarkable act of courage, guided by the serene wisdom of Azariah. Upon hearing Sarah's tragic story, Tobias was naturally apprehensive. The repeated loss of husbands on their wedding night was a terrifying pattern. Yet Azariah, his mysterious guide, immediately reassured him. Imagine Azariah speaking calmly to Tobias, dispelling his fear. He revealed the true nature of Sarah's affliction, explaining that the demon Asmodeus was responsible for the deaths of her previous husbands. But he also revealed the precise, powerful remedy, those specific parts of the fish they had retrieved from the Tigris River, the heart and the liver. He instructed Tobias to burn these parts upon the ashes of incense on the wedding night, explaining that the smoke would repel the malevolent spirit. He also advised Tobias to approach the union with prayer and purity. Imagine the quiet resolve that settled over Tobias. despite the terrifying reputation of the demon and the grim history that preceded him. Tobias chose to trust in the words of his guide and the power of divine intervention. The wedding preparations then began in Regal's house. Imagine the initial muted joy, tinged with a quiet tension known only to the family. As the usual customs of ancient Jewish weddings unfolded, the feast was prepared, guests gathered, and the blessings were exchanged. As the wedding day transitioned into evening, and Tobias and Sarah prepared for their union, the moments were filled with profound significance. Tobias, remembering Azariah's precise instructions, took the heart and liver of the fish. Imagine him in the quiet solitude of the bridal chamber, igniting the small portion of these elements upon the smoldering incense. A delicate, purifying smoke would have begun to rise, filling the chamber with a unique fragrance, a blend of the ancient incense and the unusual aroma from the fish-esque organs. As this subtle, intentional smoke ascended, a remarkable spiritual event unfolded. The demon Asmodeus, unable to endure the sacred fragrance, was immediately repelled. Imagine a sense of unseen pressure lifting, a negative presence abruptly vacating the space. The text describes Asmodeus fleeing swiftly to the farthest regions of Egypt, where the angel Raphael, still in his guise as Azariah, swiftly pursued and bound him, ensuring that his malevolent influence over Sarah was entirely removed. With the demon gone, a profound sense of peace and divine favor settled over the young couple. Tobias and Sarah spent the wedding night in fervent prayer, just as Azariah had instructed, thanking the Lord for his protection and for the miracle of their deliverance. Imagine the quiet joy that filled their hearts, the immense relief, and the deep gratitude for the peace that now enveloped them. The following morning, filled with trepidation, Regal, Sarah's father, sent a servant to check on the couple, expecting the worst. Imagine the servant's hesitant approach, the quiet knocking, the cautious opening of the door. Instead of sorrow, the servant found Tobias and Sarah sleeping peacefully. Regal, overwhelmed with relief and joy, broke into heartfelt praise of God. Their marriage then truly began, blessed and untroubled by the dark shadow that had plagued Sarah for so long. Regal arranged a joyous wedding feast that lasted for 14 days, a testament to the immense relief and celebration of their community. Imagine the laughter, the music, the abundant food, all infused with a newfound lightness and gratitude. Sarah, once isolated by tragedy, was now joyfully united, her past sorrows transformed by a quiet, profound grace. This union, born of courage and divine guidance, marked the beginning of a life together blessed with peace and harmony. From the celebration of a blessed union and the joy of a demon vanquished, our narrative now turns towards the long-awaited return journey and the healing that awaited in Nineveh. From the joyous celebrations in Ecbatana, filled with newfound peace and a blessed union, Tobias and Sarah now prepared for the long journey back to Nineveh. Their departure was a testament to the generosity and profound gratitude of Regal and Edna, Sarah's parents. Imagine the scene of their farewell. Regal, overwhelmed with relief and joy for his daughter, bestowed upon them not only half of his property, but also servants, oxen, sheep, and silver. Edna, Sarah's mother, also gave Tobias silver and expressed deep blessings for him and Sarah, emphasizing her maternal affection and the enduring hope for their future. The journey that had begun with quiet uncertainty for Tobias now commenced with abundance, a visible sign of divine favor. Their steps, now accompanied by Sarah and their new possessions, retraced the long path towards Nineveh. As they drew closer to the city, the familiar landscapes would have begun to emerge, the subtle undulations of the terrain, the sense of home on the breeze. Azariah, the ever-present guide, then turned to Tobias with a final crucial instruction. He reminded Tobias of the gall from the fish, which had been carefully preserved since their encounter by the Tigris River. Imagine Azariah speaking calmly, instructing Tobias to prepare the gall and apply it directly to his father Tobit's eyes, explaining that this specific remedy would clear the white films covering his eyes, allowing his sight to be restored. This was the moment for which this unusual provision had been held. As they neared Nineveh, their loyal dog, who had accompanied Tobias throughout his entire journey, ran ahead, a flurry of joyful barks announcing their imminent arrival. Imagine Tobit and Anna waiting at their gate, their hearts filled with a mixture of longing and daily routine. Anna, in particular, strained her eyes daily, listening intently for any sound that might signal her son's return. Her maternal anticipation was a constant, quiet yearning. Then, from the distance, she heard the unmistakable sound of their dog, and her heart leaped. Imagine her rushing out, calling Tobias's name, her eyes unable to see him, but her spirit sensing his presence. Tobit, guided by her voice and the dog's excited barks, also moved towards the gate, his blind eyes turning towards the distant sounds. Tobias, filled with overwhelming emotion, embraced his mother, then quickly went to his father. Following Azariah's precise instructions, he took the fish gall. Imagine his gentle hands, careful and deliberate, applying the prepared gall to his father's eyes. Tobit's eyes, which had known only darkness for so long, would have felt the cool, moist substance. As Tobias gently rubbed his father's eyes, a profound shift occurred. The white films that had clouded Tobit's vision for so many years began to peel away. Imagine the sensation, a subtle clearing, then a gradual, wondrous return of light. First, perhaps a blurry outline, then shapes, then colors, slowly becoming distinct. Tobit's sight was restored. He could see again. Imagine Tobit's overwhelming joy, the sudden, brilliant clarity after years of profound darkness. He rose, praising God, weeping tears of gratitude, embracing his son, and then his steadfast wife, Anna. The house, once filled with the quiet struggle of blindness, now resounded with exclamations of joy, profound relief, and heartfelt thanksgiving. This was a true homecoming, not only of a beloved son and his new wife, but of sight and renewed hope to a household that had known much sorrow. As the quiet joy of this miraculous healing settles, we move towards the ultimate revelation, as the unseen guiding hand throughout this entire journey will finally make himself known. From the overwhelming joy of restored sight and the tender reunions in Nineveh, this story now builds towards its profound and quiet climax, the revelation of the unseen guiding hand that had orchestrated every step of this remarkable journey. After Tobit's sight was restored and the initial waves of joy had settled, both Tobit and Tobias sought to express their immense gratitude to Azariah, their faithful companion. Imagine them in the peaceful setting of their home, discussing how to best reward him for his tireless guidance and invaluable assistance. Tobit even offered him half of all the wealth that Tobias had brought back from Media. It was in this moment of quiet generosity that Azariah chose to reveal his true nature. Imagine the serene stillness that would have filled the room as his voice, previously that of a travel companion, now took on a deeper resonance. He spoke not as a man, but as an angel, declaring, "I am Raphael," one of the 7 holy angels who present the prayers of the saints and who enter into the presence of the glory of the Holy One. Imagine the awe and profound reverence that would have washed over Tobit and Tobias. They fell prostrate on the ground, overwhelmed by the presence of a heavenly messenger. Raphael calmly explained his divine mission. He had been sent in answer to the earnest prayers of both Tobit, in his blindness and despair, and Sarah, in her deep affliction. He spoke of how he carried their prayers before the Lord, and how he was now sent to heal and to deliver them both. He instructed them to record all that had happened to them. As Raphael finished his gentle revelation, he ascended, vanishing from their sight. Imagine the quiet aftermath, the profound silence left in his wake, broken only by the beating of their own hearts and the echoes of his divine words. They were left not with fear, but with a deep and abiding sense of wonder, gratitude, and confirmation that divine providence had indeed been at work in every detail of their lives. Overwhelmed with renewed faith and joy, Tobit, now seeing clearly, broke into a beautiful hymn of praise to the Lord. Imagine his voice, filled with profound gratitude, recounting God's greatness, his justice, and his mercy. He spoke of the nations that would return to God, the building of a new Jerusalem, and the everlasting light that would shine upon all who turn to the Lord. His song was a testament to his own journey from darkness to light, a prophetic vision of hope and restoration. This hymn, recorded in the Book of Tobit, serves as a timeless expression of trust in divine power and the unwavering belief in ultimate deliverance. Tobit lived many more years, reaching the age of 112. He lived a life of continued righteousness, filled with gratitude and joy. Imagine his peaceful later years, enjoying the love of his restored family, seeing his grandchildren. His wife, Anna, remained steadfast by his side, witnessing the fullness of God's blessings upon their household. Tobias and Sarah continued their blessed life together. They lived in profound love and harmony, fulfilling the promise of their miraculous union. They were a testament to the fact that even through the most challenging circumstances, blindness, spiritual torment, and arduous journeys, faith, perseverance, and the quiet guidance of the divine can lead to profound healing, abundant joy, and a life truly blessed. This quiet story, unfolding through generations, reminds us that providence works in ways often unseen, guiding ordinary lives towards extraordinary grace. As the gentle echoes of Tobit and Tobias's enduring journey fade, and the figures of faith, family, and divine intervention recede, allow your mind to settle into a profound sense of quiet. We have journeyed through a world woven with threads of deep piety, personal struggle, the uncertainty of travel, and the miraculous unfolding of unseen grace. We have witnessed the quiet dignity of Tobit, the steadfast resilience of Anna, the courageous steps of Tobias, and the patient hope of Sarah. Their story, rich in human experience and divine presence, reminds us that even in ancient times, amidst hardship and despair, the hand of providence can guide, heal, and transform. Now, as the narrative concludes, feel yourself truly letting go. Release any remaining thoughts or tensions from your day. The journeys through ancient Nineveh and Ecbatana, through moments of profound prayer and miraculous healing, have unfolded. All that is left now is rest. Allow your mind to clear, your breath to deepen, and your body to relax completely. As the stillness embraces you, drift further and further into comfort. Good night, and may your sleep be peaceful and deeply restorative.